Thank you. Put your hand down. Elisa Murdoch.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Put your hand down. And Justin Riff on 2 cases.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Technically, it's 3, but we're going to TIC 1. It's going to be dismissed. All right. Each of you has made an agreement with the state to enter a plea on a plea agreement. I inform you now that you have certain constitutional rights and protections. First of all, each of you individually on each case has the right to remain silent. That means you do not have to say anything. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to submit written paperwork that has your signature, especially papers that admit or confess to wrongdoing. Do you understand you have that right, Mr. Riff?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Murdoch?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Ms. Murdoch.
Yes, Your Honor.
Robert Crochet
Yes, sir.
and DeBeer Crochet.
Yes.
Each of you has the right to a jury trial on each case. That means you and your attorney participating with the state could select 6 citizens from a pool of disinterested citizens who would hear all the evidence, see the testimony and materials, and those 6 people would decide whether you've been found not guilty or whether you have been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. That's the right to a jury trial. Each of you has the right to confront witnesses. That means on any case that you go to trial on, you and your attorney would have the right to question, cross-examine, or challenge any witness who would testify. You each, in each case, when the dust settles and the case is over, each of you has what's called the right to appeal. That is a right where you or your attorney or the 2 of you together could demand that a higher court review the official record in this proceeding and the evidence and answer any challenge, any legal challenges that you might have. That right I would caution you, you have to be careful with because it requires particular papers with specific information. It also has time limitations. So it's not an easy thing to do, but be aware that that right exists. You also have, each of you and the state has the right to demand that this proceeding be held in the open public courtroom. That means that you each have the right to make that demand in any case, if it's 2 or 1 or more. The problem is because of the COVID pandemic, we've not been doing that. And in order to proceed as we're doing right now, each of you had to review and sign a document that identifies you individually and then declares your consent to do this hearing by video conference instead of the open public courtroom. Now, in each of your cases, there are documents that have been reviewed and signed by you. Did each document that is part of these cases, in your particular individual cases, did you review each document that has your signature with your attorney and then sign those documents? I ask Mr. DeBeer Crochet. Did you sign the documents after reviewing them with your attorney?
I got an email this morning, reviewed it, and sent it back to the same email I got.
My question is, did you have the help and the guidance of your attorney, Mr. Layson?
I did not this one, not the last one that I got this morning.
Okay, Mr. Layson, I'm sorry, we're going to drop you from the proceeding at this
That's fine,
time.
Your Honor. I'll speak to him.
All right. Robert Crochet, did you have the assistance and guidance of your attorney, Sam Locke, in signing the documents that are part of your record, your proceeding?
Yes, sir.
Elisa Murdoch, did you have the help of Dipali Walters in signing the papers that are part of your case?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Riff, in your 3 cases, did you have the help of Mr. Michael Belleville in reviewing and signing the papers?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Now, there are other documents that each of you has reviewed and signed. Specifically, I include some critical papers. One is called, by the way, each one identifies you by name, case number, and court number. And it identifies you and reminds you, first of all, that each of you is informed in writing of the rights and protections that I talked to you about a while ago. My discussions with you are being recorded by a certified court reporter. But now this document is titled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions. And it tells you all kinds of rights and protections that you are giving up by entering this plea. In particular, there's a part of it that's divided into 14 numbered sections and paragraphs and/or paragraphs that tell you and remind you of different matters that are involved in your plea. One of them specifically says that the deal that you've made with the state is not binding on me as the judge. As a judge, I have the authority and responsibility, and I'm required to say yes or no to your plea bargain, your individual plea bargain, and I have the authority and responsibility to set your punishment. You and the state will be making recommendations to me, but I am not required to accept the recommendations, the deal or the recommendations. I have the authority to give you a punishment within the range for the specific case that you plead to. That may include a punishment that's heavier than what you agreed to. If I reject your deal, or if I give you a heavier punishment, in either case, the law would allow you to start all over again if you choose to, and none of what you said or signed up till now would be used against you. Now, that document, trial courts, pardon me, the document, Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions, did you review that and understand it, Ms. Elisa Murdoch?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Riff, in your three cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Crochet?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, another document that's critical is one that talks about your right of appeal. I mentioned to you a moment ago that you have a right of appeal. We discussed it. Now, this document,
Get the hell out of here.
this document that says the trial court certification of defendant's right of appeal, in that one, I inform you that because you've made a deal, it's your own deal, you cannot appeal it. In other words, you give up the right of appeal in order to go through with this deal. Did you understand that, Mr. Crochet?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Murdoch, Ms. Murdoch, I'm sorry. Elisa?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Riff in your cases.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, state, are they all getting some form of probation?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Each of you has signed a document that applies, requests that you be granted probation. That document makes you or gets you to make certain commitments and answer certain questions that you tell me that you want the probation and you understand what it is. Probation is a written legal binding agreement between you and this court. As long as you live up to 100% of the conditions of supervision, then any jail sentence will be suspended or probated. Anyone getting deferred adjudication, state?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Murdoch and Mr. Riff are both getting deferred. Mr. Crochet is getting adjudicated or regular.
Okay. All right. For those that are getting deferred adjudication, let me remind you quickly that deferred adjudication is very beneficial because even though you're entering a plea wherein I can convict you, I will defer that. I will postpone that. And if you live up to 100% of the conditions, then the case will be dismissed. The case to which you plead will be dismissed, and you will not have under Texas law, you will not have a conviction for that charge. If you fail or refuse to live up to the conditions, then the state may ask me to bring you in, have a hearing. At that point, if the law allows, and it's my opinion that it does in that case, then I will convict you, and that conviction follows you the rest of your life. Plus, you'll be looking at 100% of the range of punishment. And I'll go over that with each of you. Lisa Murdoch, you were charged with DWI, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Walters? Deepali Walters?
Yes, Your Honor, she is charged with
All right.
DWI, but she's going to be pleading on count 2, which is the obstruction.
All right, State, you have a motion.
Yes, Your Honor, the state moves to waive and abandon count 1 and proceed solely on count 2.
No objection.
Ms. Murdoch, that means that you're no longer charged with DWI. You're now charged with obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, which is a lesser offense. To that charge, ma'am, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Based on your plea and the evidence, I find that there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty. But I will not, because the agreement that you have made and the state is recommending that I grant you deferred adjudication. State, please recite to me on the record the agreement that has been reached that you recommend at this time, you and the defense.
Yes, Your Honor, the agreement is 12 months deferred. A $300 fine.
How
Fully
much?
300.
Okay,
Fully probated. That's not reflected in the plea paperwork. It was brought to my attention that that wasn't, but the intent is that the fine be fully probated.
okay,
40 hours of community service. Submit to regular UAs for half the term. DWI education program. Victim impact panel live. And TAP evaluation.
okay. The regular UAs is in lieu of ignition interlock?
Yes, Your Honor, there was no alcohol in this case.
Okay. Interesting. I'm always curious to see what the report from the arresting officer says when it results that there was no alcohol. All right. Ms. Murdoch, do you have children you support?
No, I don't.
Okay,
Honor.
and what is your income, total income? From whatever source?
I'm unemployed right now.
How long have you been unemployed?
Well, I do have a side job, but I'm on a call. I work in a Freeman Coliseum.
Let me ask you again. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Tell me, what is your total income at this time?
Yearly, right?
Whichever way you want to give it to, so I can calculate what in my mind I should do.
I just get like an $11 an hour.
And Judge, can I address that with you? Do you mind if
No.
I just go ahead and address it?
Not
Miss
at all.
Murdoch she's going to go to school. I've talked to her and I've talked to her father actually, and she's going to be going to school starting in January.
All right.
And so to encourage her to focus on her education and not have to worry as much about the court payments, The prosecutor and I had talked about probating her fine. I was going to ask you also to consider reducing her supervisory fees for that reason. We just really want her to focus in on getting that education and going to those classes and getting her life in order in those ways. She is planning on working very minimally just to kind of help pay her probation costs. Her family is not going to be helping her with this case. She's on her own for paying for this.
All right. The court approves the agreement that's been reached between the parties. You are granted 12 months deferred adjudication. By the way, are you a U.S. citizen, Ms. Murdoch?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Riff
Yes, Your Honor.
and Mr. Crocier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Murdoch, you're granted 12 months deferred adjudication. You're fined $300, but that is fully probated. That means if you live up to all the conditions, 100%, then this case not only will be dismissed, but you will not pay the $300 fine. You will perform 50 hours of community service restitution. You're getting a break on fines and supervisory fees, but I'm going to add a little bit of work from you. I know you're going to be going to school, so get on this now.
Yes, Your Honor.
50 hours community service, that is an increase in the punishment. You have the right to reject it and start all over. You'll submit regular UAs for 1/2 of the term, which is 6 months. You'll do the DWI education program, the victim impact panel live. You'll submit a TAP evaluation, and the recommendations are subject to my approval. You will not use any kind of illegal substances, period. The supervisory fee will be a minimum $25 a month. Now, you, like all the other individuals here, Mr. Riff and Mr. Crochet, will have to come by the offices of County Court at number 5 within 1 week. Have your fingerprint or your thumbprint placed on documents as required by law. And you will wait here, do not leave this meeting until you've met with Ms. Marisela Luna, the court liaison officer who's going to start you off on probation. By the way, probation office will read to each of you individually your conditions of supervision. You will sign those and you will have a copy in your hands. All right, Ms. Murdoch, this completes, I'm sorry, Ms. Walters, is there anything else you wanted to address?
No, Your Honor, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry
All
Christmas to you as well.
Mr.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Mr. Crochet, you were charged with DWI with a blood alcohol content of 0.15 or higher. That means extreme intoxication. State, you have a motion.
Yes, Your Honor, the state moves to waive and abandon the extreme intoxication enhancement and proceed on a DWI first.
Defense, any objection?
None, Your Honor.
Then, Mr. Crochet, you were arrested for driving while extremely intoxicated, which at least the accusation is very worrisome because that means you could have killed somebody. You are now charged with DWI first. That is misdemeanor B for purposes of punishment. Let me remind you that that is very dangerous. So you are now charged with DWI first, no longer DWI extreme intoxication. That is the agreement. To that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty, Your Honor.
The court accepts your plea of guilty. I find that there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. Is this going to be a deferred state?
No, Your Honor, this is regular probation.
All right. In this instance, I find that you are guilty based on your plea and the evidence. State, what is the agreement on punishment that you and the defense are recommending?
The agreement is for 180 days, probated for 14 months, $500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, restitution in an amount to be determined,
Do we know to
DWI education
do we know
program.
to whom the restitution will go?
It's to be determined, Judge.
All right, then. Go ahead.
DWI education program, victim impact panel live, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for 7 months.
Mr. Crochet, do you have a family you support?
Yes, sir.
How many children?
2, sir.
2?
Yes, sir.
What are their ages?
8 and 5, sir.
All right. And how do you make a living? And more importantly, what is your total income from whatever source?
I am a member of the United States Armed Forces, sir, approximately 65,000 annually.
Well, I thank you for your service, but I do not thank you for getting yourself in trouble. What is your rank?
Was a master sergeant reduced to a technical sergeant, sir. E7 to E6.
All right. Did you lose income or you're still in the same, roughly the same income level?
Lost income, sir. I do not have the calculation, however.
But you do figure it's 65?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Crochet, I'm sure you're disappointed in yourself, but worse than that, you really let down your family. I approve the agreement in essence, although I'm going to adjust it. Do you have any great debts, medical or otherwise, that you shouldn't, but I need to ask, are there any great debts that you're burdened by at this time?
No, sir.
All right. Then your fine will not be 500, it's going to be 900. Which means I have increased your punishment. You are sentenced to 180 days locked up, Bexar County Jail, probated and suspended for 14 months. You're fined with $900. You will perform 48 hours of community service restitution. You will pay restitution to be determined to whom and how much. You will complete the DWI education program, the Victim Impact Panel Live. You'll submit to a TAP evaluation and the recommendations will be subject to my approval. You will have ignition interlock installed on your vehicle for 7 months. During that time, you're not to drive any vehicle other than your own that's equipped with ignition interlock. If your duty requires you to drive a military vehicle, you may do that without ignition interlock, but not for civilian purposes, but only for your military purposes. Your supervisory fee will be $52 a month. Now, I have given you a punishment by increasing the fine to $900. That means that by increasing, you have the right to start all over again and refuse to accept that. What is your choice?
Well, Your Honor, I'd like to be heard before we get into that, if that's okay.
Mr. Locke, I will hear you at this time.
Yes, as stated, Mr. Crozier is a member of the United States Air Force. He applied for the Veterans Treatment Court. He did it quickly and thoroughly. They they declined and would not allow him to participate in that program because there was an accident in this case, among other reasons. Mr. Crozier did not whine. He did not complain. He accepted what was handed to him, just as he accepted the busting of his pay and his rank because of this incident. At that point, when he was rejected from that program, he went out on his own and did the DWI education program, and he did the victim impact panel, which I have provided to the state. Now, I know that there's a shuffling of prosecutors that have gone around, but we still have those certificates that are maybe 45 days or a month old, not very old at all.
Let me interrupt you momentarily. As an officer of the court, you're informing me of that, and if you provide or if you have provided or will provide the documentation, I will give him credit for that. By the way, sir, are you defendant? Is it Crochet or is it Crozier?
Crozier, sir.
Crozier. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
And so briefly, Your Honor, that brings me to a close. And at this point, the court, as you understand, Mr. Crozier, the court is increasing the fine from what we bargained for. So once again, he's put his head on the block and someone's taking a swipe at it, even though we keep trying to do the right thing and take responsibility for his actions. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way at all, Your Honor, but I just, at each turn, Mr. Crozier has tried to do the right thing by the state of Texas. And I want him to understand that if he chooses at this point, he can withdraw his plea and we can start over.
You want to make that call, Mr. Crozier?
Your Honor, I accept everything as stated within this court and will proceed as directed.
All right, sir. Mr. Crozier, what branch are you in?
Air Force, sir.
All right. Like I said, I know that you are disappointed in yourself, and probably their family is just as much, if not more so. I tell you what I'll do, Mr. Crozier. Instead of the 900, I'll do the, let's see, 700 if you do 60 hours of community service. Tell me which one you'd rather do.
I would prefer the community service, sir. I would rather help people.
All right, then the fine will be $700, but the community service will be 60 hours. Mr. Crozier, I don't want to add to your misery. I just want to make damn sure that you know and understand that there is a heavy penalty for drinking and driving. The worst thing that can happen in your life is not what you got here, getting busted some and losing some money. The worst thing can happen is for you to drink and drive and kill your own family. And you and I both know, we see it in the news, newspapers and on TV. It happens. Also, you also know that the life that your children will have, their future depends a lot on the love and caring you and their mother give them, and in particular, the example that you give them. I will tell you that drinking of any kind is not helpful to children or to yourself. I don't want to continue to preach. I just want you to know and think about what I'm saying. I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. Sam, you too. This concludes your particular proceeding, except you got to stick around. Don't forget to come in and put your thumbprint on the documents. And you have to meet with Ms. Luna. Mr. Riff.
Yes, Your Honor.
And by the way, Sam, any questions?
No, Your Honor, may I be excused?
Yes, you are. And Mr. Crozier, stick around. Mr. Riff, you have two charges of theft, 100 to less than 750. State, tell me what's going to happen on this. I know part of it is case number 609725 is going to be taken in consideration and dismissed. What are we doing on 609-282 and 609-725?
Your Honor, both cases are going to run concurrent and be for deferred terms of 14 months.
14 months, okay. And the plea is going to be,
No contest.
Fuck, man.
is that you, Mr. Riff?
No, sir. No, Your Honor.
All right. To the charge of theft, 100 to less than 750 in case number 609-282, Mr. Riff, how do you plead?
No contest, Your Honor.
In case number 609-725, charge of theft, 100 to less than 750, how do you plead?
No contest, Your Honor.
That's the one that's supposed to be dismissed.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
The second theft case you just read out, that's the one that's supposed to be dismissed.
609-725?
Yes, Your
I
Honor.
see, yes, okay,
Never mind.
all right. On the plea, on case number 609-282, the court accepts your plea of no contest. I find based on your plea and the evidence that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I am going to honor the 14-month deferred adjudication. What is the further punishment on that, Ms. Haas?
Yes, Your Honor. That one is going to be a $300 fine plus court costs.
I'm sorry,
$300 fine plus court costs.
okay,
60 hours of community service. $50 Crime Stoppers fee.
50.
Correct. A T as in Tom, SE. And this is to run concurrent with case 625-254. And the state will TIC 609-725.
All right. Mr. Belleville, is that the agreement that you have reached?
That is the agreement on that case, Your Honor.
Mr. Riff, is that the agreement you reached on these cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, just
The-
you didn't take you didn't ask Mr. Riff his plea in 625-254, which is a DWI case.
625-254?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that is a DWI?
Yes, Your Honor, and the state has no motions on that case.
All right. Okay, so you're, in addition to the thefts, you have a DWI, is that correct, Mr. Riff?
Yes, sir. Yes,
It's-
yes, Your Honor.
It's a DWI misdemeanor B state?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, to that charge, how do you plead?
No contest, Your Honor.
All right. And what are the specifics on that, Ms. Haas?
Your Honor, it's 14 months deferred, $300 fine plus court costs, 60 hours of community service, DWI education program, victim impact panel live, TAP evaluation, 7 months of ignition interlock, and it's to run concurrent with 609-282.
All right, for the record, 609-282 and 625-254 run concurrent. In
Yes,
each
sir.
case, you are sentenced to 14 months deferred adjudication, a $300 fine, 60 hours of community service restitution. In 609-282, you will pay a $50 Crime Stoppers fee. You will participate in the anti-theft course, ATSP. In 625-254, You will have 14 months deferred adjudication, $300 fine plus court costs, 60 hours community service restitution. You will complete the DWI education program, the victim impact panel live, the TAP evaluation and recommendations, subject to my approval. 7 months, continuous months of ignition interlock on your vehicle. You are not to drive for those 7 months any other vehicle other than your own equipped with ignition interlock. Sir, do you have family you support?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay, 0 children. And what is your total income?
I work on a commission-based job, so it varies, roughly anywhere from 1,500 to upwards of 3,500 a month.
All right. Then the court will approve the agreement as has been reached. Your supervisory fee will be $38 a month.
Your Honor, may I address the interlock issue?
Mr. Belleville.
Mr. Riff has recently had an accident where he no longer has a vehicle. We are requesting that in lieu of the interlock, he be able to use a portable device. He understands that should he get a vehicle later, he needs to report that to his probation officer to switch back to the interlock.
And let me just remind you and Mr. Crozier, during the term of your deferred adjudication, you're not to have 1 drop, nothing, 0 of alcohol, and certainly no illegal drugs. Is that
Understood,
clear,
Your Honor.
Mr. Riff
Understood, Your Honor.
and Mr. Crozier? You may be out. All right. In lieu of the ignition interlock, you will have installed a portable alcohol monitor. If you obtain a vehicle, then you will have to transfer it from the portable alcohol monitor to the ignition interlock, so that the combination of the two is a total of 7 continuous months of monitoring.
Yes, Your Honor.
Questions, Mr. Riff?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and just for the record, we have taken in consideration 62525. Pardon me, which one is it? 609725?
That is correct.
Yes, Your Honor, and I just submitted that to your Adobe sign.
Okay, all right. That concludes these proceedings on these 3 individuals.
May I be excused, Your Honor?
Hold on, don't forget to meet with Ms. Luna, and you have 1 week each of you to come in and have your thumbprint placed on the documents. All right,
Yes,
now,
Your Honor.
yes, of course, you may be excused. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and your efforts. And
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank
Just-
you. Merry Christmas, Your Honor.
Mr. Riff, don't begin.
Hello,
My approach. Oh.
Ms. Luna, did you want to say something?
Yes, no, I think Mr. Riff was trying to leave. I was just trying to tell him not to leave, Judge.
Oh, no, ma'am. No.